Hi Year 4 and welcome to your Tuesday afternoon history lesson. I'm just going to share my screen and you'll be able to see our slides for this afternoon. So in today's lesson we're going to think about how the ancient Greeks changed the world. So have a think back to one of our earlier lessons in this topic when we were learning about the ancient Greeks and we were thinking about sports. What did the ancient Greeks introduce in terms of sports that has affected and changed the way sports are today? Maybe you'd like to pause the video and just have a think about that. Did you remember that the ancient Greeks held the first Olympic Games? And this was an opportunity for athletes to come from all over Greece and compete in various competitions. And there were like running races, there were horse racing events, there was discus, there was a javelin, there was races, and there was wrestling. So it was like a variety of different sports. Hopefully you remembered all of that from last time. But the ancient Greeks didn't just change the world of sports. They also introduced and invented lots of ideas and things that we still use today. So we're going to watch the video now, and I'd like you to grab a pen and paper and see if you can write down as many things as you can that the ancient Greeks managed to change and that still affect our world today.
What did the Greeks do for us? Many of the things that make the UK a really cool place to live were actually invented by the Greeks. We just copied them. Okay, we didn't copy everything, but let's give them a bit of credit anyway. First off, the Greeks gave the world democracy, which we still use in Britain today to choose who runs the country. In ancient Athens, citizens met regularly to vote on the laws that changed their daily lives, using a simple show of hands by all. I say all, women, slaves and foreigners were banned from voting, so not so democratic, really. The Greeks also gave us the Olympic Games. The very first Olympics took place in 776 BC. The only event was a 200-metre foot race, and the winner was a humble baker named Charybdis. As time went on, the Greeks added more events, making it more like the Olympics we know today. The big difference being that the Greeks did it all in the nude. The Greeks pretty much invented modern mathematics, sculpture, philosophy, science, and even medicine. And they used some of their new knowledge to make cool inventions like the water wheel, the alarm clock, the catapult, and even the vending machine. Finally, our language has roots in ancient Greece, from the individual letters through to complete words like dinosaur and helicopter. So whether we're talking about language, science, maths, law, buildings, sport, art, or annoyingly early wake-up calls, the Greeks got there first.
Okay, so hopefully that will have jogged your memory on a few of the things that the Greeks invented that we still use today. Let's see how many you managed to write down. So the Greeks, we've already talked about how the first Olympic Games in Olympia, that Greek city-state of Olympia. They also made quite a lot of advances in terms of maths, and some of the rules that we still use today are based on things that were discovered over 2,000 years ago by Greek mathematicians. They also did a lot of thinking about science and philosophy, and they invented some amazing things like the water wheel, the catapults, the alarm clock. The alphabet we use today is based on the Greek alphabet, and we're going to be learning more about that this lesson. Last week, we also learned about them inventing democracy. As you remember, their democracy is very different to our democracy. So they only let men vote, whereas we in our country now in Britain, we say that anyone who's a citizen who's over 18, whether they're a man or a woman, and whatever job they do, they are all have an entitlement to vote. Down here, we've got someone making a sculpture. Again, we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute. And we've also got somebody over here who is, this is the Greeks discovered a lot about medicine that is still used today, and they named a lot of the parts of the body. And the Greeks were also really famous for their buildings and architecture. And they had these different types of really heavy stone columns, which held up really kind of heavy stone roofs. If you think about, these are some ruins of Greek buildings that were built more than 2,000 years ago, and they're still standing today. So we're really very skilled at building and making really beautiful buildings as well. You can see some of the detail here. This is actually, the columns have been made to look like people. The people are holding up the building's roof with their heads. That's a very sort of fancy building. And the Greeks also, their artwork was amazing. They made really beautiful vases with intricate patterns and designs. You can see that they had, a lot of them had this kind of orangey background, and that was the colour of the clay that they used to make the pots and the vases and the plates and things with. And then they would paint on top of that with black paint, really fine detail. They had a lot of these kind of geometric patterns, so repeating patterns. You can see that on a lot of these vases that we've got here, and especially on this one, you can see we've got this kind of, this is called a maze pattern, got some kind of triangular ones. And they also liked painting characters from some of the myths on their pottery as well. This here is the three-headed dog, which is called the Cerberus. And you might see if you can spot any familiar characters from the Greek myths on some of these. Perhaps you recognised the Pegasus, the winged horse, or perhaps you recognised the Minotaur, you know, a man with a bull's head and tail. As we mentioned at the start of the lesson, the Greeks also invented the alphabet that we use today. It's a bit different, but it's fairly similar, a lot of the letters, and the way that one sound corresponds to one letter in the alphabet is also really similar. So here's the Greek alphabet is written in the gold letters, and our alphabet is written above it. So you can see that some of the letters are really exactly the same. Got the B's, and Eta is the same as our H, M or Mu, and Zeta or Z are the same, but some of them are really unrecognisably different. For example, if you look at delta, you wouldn't think that that's similar to a D, really, would you? Also, things like pi, which just looks like a table, which is very different to our P today. And the really confusing thing, I think, is some of the letters actually look like different letters. So if you look at, for example, the rho, which is representing our letter R, actually looks like our P. How confusing is that? And also the chi here looks like an X, so that is very confusing. So I've written a little message for you here in the Greek alphabet. I wonder if you'd like to pause the video now and see if you can decode it using this grid down here. So you find this letter in the Greek alphabet and say, right, that's an H. See if you can do that now. And all will be revealed. Here we have the message. It says, hello, year 4. And for your first task today, that's exactly what you're going to be doing. You're going to be answering, I've written some questions actually for you in the Greek alphabet, and you are going to write underneath your answer to the question. So if I just help you do this first one, if I show you what I mean, we are going to, first of all, just translate underneath. I find that a bit easier. So first of all, I'm looking for this kind of triangular letter. That's a delta, so that's a D. So I'm going to write underneath it D. I'm going to use capital letters so it's a bit easier. Next, I've got O, Omicron. So I've got O, do. In fact, you know what, I might write it above. That seems a bit easier, then I'm not covering up what I'm doing. So, and then I've got this psi, so that's a Y. I've got the O again. And I've got what looks like a Y, but actually if I look up here is a U. Do you? That looks like Nike, but let's find that letter there, shall we? That letter there is a lambda, which is an L. Do you? L. I is the same, K is the same, E is the same. So do you like? Let's see if we can find what this one says. So that's an X in the Greek alphabet is a C. An O. Delta is a D. Got an E again, and this funny one. Let's see if I can spot that anywhere. There we are, sigma, which is an S. So it says, the question is, do you like codes? So now what I've got to do is I've got to answer that question. Do I like codes? I do like codes. So I'm going to say, yes, I do. Okay, so for your first task, you're going to be decoding some questions in ancient Greek, and you're going to be answering the question for you. Okay, so what is your answer, your personal answer? So that's the first part of this afternoon's task. And then for the second part of this afternoon's task, you're going to be writing your name in Greek letters, and we're going to decorate it in the style of a Greek vase. So remember how those Greek vases had a kind of orangey clay background. So I'm going to give my screen here an orangey background. When you're doing it, perhaps you'd like to draw your letters and things first, and then maybe you could colour with an orange crayon or something if you've got one at home. We should be using kind of going for an orange or brown background, and then some black, very sharp lines for our letters and our designs. Obviously, it depends what you've got at home. You've just got to do the best with what you've got. But I'd really like to see what you're going to come up with here. So I'm going to write my name here. And in fact, I am going to write, so I'm going to write my name. So I'm going to write, my name is Ros. So I'm going to write P for R, and then O, and then the S is really funny, so I'm going to look at that quite carefully. There we go. And then I might just make that a bit thicker once I'm happy with my lines. Might make that really stand out. Try and tidy up my O a bit here as well. Bit of a messy one. See if I can make it look a bit more like it's intended to look like that. And this is my Greek letter R. That's a funny one. Okay. And then I'm going to think about how I can decorate and put a border around the outside of my plaque. So I'm going to be using, I'm going to use a slightly thinner pen here. You might use a pencil to start with because it's quite easy to make a mistake. And you might, if you've got a ruler or something flat at home, this might help here as well. So you can look at some of these designs that I put here for you to try. Some of them are quite easy, some of them are a bit harder. So just take it a step at a time and try and choose something that's going to be going to work for you. So if I look at, I think probably the easiest one is this one down the bottom here, this sort of plant-like structure. So all I need to do for that is draw a line and then get a nice black pen and draw some leaves on it. And they kind of go in pairs of leaves, two together, all the way down, trying to keep it really even. A bit tricky when you're writing with a mouse on a screen. I'm sure you guys can do something that looks a lot neater than that. And then you can colour in the leaves as well if you want to give that kind of pattern. So I suppose it's a bit more like that one there actually, isn't it? It's a bit more like this one, but there you go. So you kind of get the impression you can make a kind of border like that around all four sides. The other one that I think is quite easy to do is, even though it doesn't look very easy, is this one up here. For that one, you can do two straight lines with your ruler. like that. And you might want to have a practice of these before you actually do them on your special plaque. So just be a bit careful about what you're going to do first. And all this is, actually, when you look at it, is a series of T's. It's like a T shape coming up like that along one side. And along from the top, then there's also some T's coming down. It's like upside down T shape, capital T for Thomas the Tank Engine or whatever. And so you can try and make a bit of a design like that, maybe. And if you want to, you could use a thicker pen there, because that might actually help it make it look a bit more like a Greek kind of design. Slightly heavy black marks. You can also try this one, which is a bit more of a labyrinth, or you can do these kind of curvy waves. It's up to you, or you can just do, sometimes you can just do kind of a series of lines. So if you want to just get a ruler and do some designs which are just basically lines at different spacings, I might do some close together. I might get a thicker line and do, whoops, not a wavy one like that, Mrs. Southwood. A nice thick black one like this. One side for my border. You can do all sorts of things. You can just do little crosses. You can do just whatever you fancy, really. You make it look Greek as possible. Okay, so there's some ideas for you. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. You are going to need a pen and paper for that one. I think that's probably going to be a lot easier than trying to draw on a screen. And if you can have a go at writing your letters, maybe you'd even like to send, if you want to, you could write a message to your class. If we get any good messages in Greek alphabet to our class, we could post them on our posts. And everyone could have fun trying to decode them, see what they say. If you get bored and you need something else to do this afternoon, the other thing that you could do is have a go at drawing and decorating a Greek vase. So again, you could use a nice kind of orange colour for the background, and you could do some of those nice Greek patterns and geometric designs. On the ones that we saw in the picture, there was sort of some that just had kind of collars on them. You could try drawing one of the mythical beasts or one of the Greek heroes or gods on the main body of your vase. And obviously we would love to see any of your artwork that you want to send in. Been really enjoying it when my class have sent in things. Please send your work as usual to either Miss Whitehouse or myself. You're going to use the normal email addresses y4chestnut@australiabyronwood.org or y4maple@australiabyronwood.org. Okay, fantastic. So we really look forward to seeing all of your work from this afternoon and hope you have a nice afternoon doing that, and see you soon. Bye.